What's going on, guys? D&T in the 773 back here with another video talking about, Chicago Bears action. Of course, last week the Bears played the Rams. We got an awesome victory against the Rams. And then this week, looking forward to Sunday, we got against the Carolina Panthers. My name's Tyler. I'm joined alongside
Daniel. Hello. Welcome back.
What's going on, dude? How are you, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing fantastic. Week 5, the first 5 weeks, it kind of went by pretty quickly in terms of
It's already week
football
5.
and the conversation.
It's crazy.
Week 5, we're there. We're a quarter through the series, and I'm pretty excited. I mean, things have been going really well for the Bears. I can't say it's the most beautiful shining light the first 5 games of the season we've ever watched in Bears history, but it's definitely coming to a good start here. And I think after this last week's win, I think high hopes, Tyler.
What I've noticed with the Bears, Dan, is like every week we've progressively been getting better, which is all you can ask for out of a football team. Going down the downtrend, it's a little hard, seeing a team that, goes up, maybe gets 2 wins to start the season and then just keeps on losing. But this team is progressively getting better, which is great. Us being Bears fans and seeing progression from Caleb, progression from the offensive line as well with a few of the adjustments. The receivers are finally getting more involved, and we'll talk about it later. But finally, we got that run game involved with the Rams. Finally.
Finally, indeed. So let's go over the game a little bit, because that was a pretty interesting game, and I think it was pretty close for most of the day, and the scoring wasn't necessarily anything crazy until like the second half, but still a very exciting game against a pretty good team, against again Matthew Stafford, which is one of Caleb's idols in the football industry. So a pretty exciting game for everybody.
Big win for the Bears on last Sunday against the Rams. Kind of going into this was one of those games where, especially with Puka Nacua out and Cooper Kupp, it could be anybody's ball game. Just because, but the Rams, the week before, they did end up being the 49ers. It was a very, very close game. Came down to a game-winning drive by Matthew Stafford. So looking forward to the Bears this week. We didn't know what was going to kind of, happen with the Rams, be slinging like they were last week, where they, potentially have a downgrade to the next week with the Bears. But the Bears did end up getting an awesome win against the Niners, 24-18, which was awesome. Kind of just, recapping the game just super quick. In the first quarter, the Bears found themselves getting the ball back after a strip sack from Montez Sweat on Matthew Stafford. Awesome tackle by Montez Sweat, right, Dan?
Oh yeah, that was a really good part. It's like it just changes the momentum, especially if you start rough early. Especially like a quarterback like Matthew Stafford and a coach like Sean McVay, right? I think that was the part that was really worrying me the most, was how Sean McVay's game plan was going to look against a good Bears team. Because the last couple of times we played the Rams, never at home, oh my gosh, they've whooped us. Like, especially their special teams. Like, I just always remember them really kicking our ass. But it was a really good start to the game here.
Bear down, man. Bear down, Anthony. Yeah. No, yeah, Dan. This huge defensive game, like, once again for the Bears. Getting this defense rolling can, sometimes spark this offense as well. But yeah, I think Montez Sweat being the addition to the Bears on the one side of the edge has been an amazing piece. Ryan Poles did do really well with this one, especially getting, a strip sack on Matthew Stafford, and then Kyle Gordon recovered the ball. Huge play. I see another comment in the thing. We'll get over this. We'll get into this a little bit later. Will DeAndre Swift keep up what we saw last week? This is a great question. Great, because, the first 3 weeks with DeAndre Swift it wasn't pretty. Wasn't pretty whatsoever. I'll keep that question up, so we'll talk about that right now. We just, it wasn't even just DeAndre Swift. It was kind of the Bears' run game could not get going whatsoever. The offensive line could not hold up blocking for especially running the outside zone. Inside handoffs looked a little bit better, but it's just, DeAndre Swift couldn't get going. And there was the question on Twitter, why did we pay DeAndre Swift money, especially after week 3? Everybody's like, why are we paying him $8 million for 3 years when our backups who were still on the rookie contract, Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson, are producing more? But last week was, especially week 4, that was kind of a game for DeAndre Swift to kind of make his mark, right, Dan?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I think that was the emergence of DeAndre Swift. That being said, I think that is not his best game of the season. I think he's going to continue having greater success on this team. I think it went a lot to the play calling. And I think the patience factor, I think DeAndre Swift isn't a great downhill runner. I think he's someone that is really good when you get past that first line of defense and you kind of toss him a ball or get him some outside handoff. So I think he feels most comfortable when he has a little bit of space and maybe two people in front of him. He's really good and shifty with his legs. So I was really excited to see him play finally just stretch the field. I would love to say that he's going to keep up the play style, but I think it all depends on game plan. I think it depends early on how many touches he gets, and it depends on also how the backup running backs are looking. Because at the end of the day, Roshan is going to get those 1 yard carries. I don't know where Khalil's been, but that's the only thing that worries me is that I think DeAndre needs to make up for what he gets in the passing game for the touchdowns that I think Roshan's going to have to take away from him.
I agree, especially, having the Panthers this week. This is a big game for the Bears, kind of like what happened last year with the trade with Bryce Young. This is kind of, and obviously we'll talk about in a little bit, with Andy Dalton basically, coming back to, Soldier Field since he was with the Bears in 2021. But I do see DeAndre Swift keeping up the, what he produced last week with the Rams. Do I see him getting 70 yards receiving and 90 yards rushing again this week? No, I don't see him doing that. But I do see him producing in the run game and, the passing game as well. If he can put up those numbers again, that would be awesome. It's kind of like with Roma Dunze last week, with not with the Rams, but when they played, the week before when he put up, 115 yards and a touchdown. That's what we wanted to see out of Roma. Obviously, against the Rams, we didn't get to see that as much. But I do see DeAndre Swift keeping up what he did last week. The offensive line is starting to figure out how to block a little bit better together as a team. Matt Pryor's been doing a pretty good job coming in. Nate Davis is finally not in there, which is awesome. I think this offensive line is slowly getting better. Is it great? No, I think it's good. But I think,
it's not, it's not the end of the world, but a lot of the reports that I've been seeing lately shows that the Bears offensive line is still top 15. So I think it's a very weird year when it comes to, I look at it usually in fantasy football perspective, but it's a weird year for a lot of the, system players. So they're having trouble. Most teams are having trouble with their offensive line. There's only a few stud offensive linemen, and there's probably 5 of them, and they're all on 3 different teams. So I think the Bears do look better. I think the changes that we've made look a lot more just like they'll last for most of the season, and it's going to definitely help us with the run game here. This was just an explosive day for everybody. I think it was nice to see. You could see the offensive lineman cheering, right, whenever they'd get a first down or something like that. So it was really exciting to see because that also shows a little bit more heart from the offensive line, showing that they're, they're coming together themselves. I do wish I could see a little bit more from Darnell Wright once in a while. He's being the top graded pick from what we had last year. I wish he would continue that stretch that he had last year, but that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. I think I still am excited.
He started off a little slow this year, but just give him a little bit. I just think give Darnell Wright a little bit. He's a little bit of a slump right now. I know he's had a few holding calls against him or, false start calls, starting off a little bit rough. But, kind of just going back to our question, I think me and Dan both agree that DeAndre Swift will keep up what we see last week. I'm not sure if it'll be the same exact numbers, like 70 yards receiving, 90 yards rushing. But I do see DeAndre Swift keeping up what happened last week, and we'll see a little bit of Roshan as well. We didn't see any Khalil Herbert. We'll talk about the stats in a little bit, but Roshan did well when he came in, being kind of the bully ball guy, getting the first down when it's like 2nd and 1 or whatever, and he did get a touchdown. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but appreciate the question, Eric. That's a good question about DeAndre
Eric.
Swift. Let's kind of get back into the recap. So, nothing too big happened for the Bears in the first half. First half play, we did get that touchdown with a 1 yard run with Roschon Johnson. It was the first score of the game. Roschon Johnson got that. But the halftime score for the Bears was 10-6. Bears were on top. And then the second half was a good second half for the Bears because, we progressed more. We got two more touchdowns. The first touchdown being it was a beautiful throw from Caleb Williams to DJ Moore. DJ Moore is in the back of the end zone. It's exactly where the ball needed to be. If it was any more to the right, it would have been an instant pick, but it was perfectly over the shoulder to DJ Moore right there, and he caught the ball. Beautiful pass. I think that's what DJ Moore was looking for. Finally
a good game for him as well, right? Definitely he had a couple attempts in the end zone this past Sunday, and he caught one of them. He caught probably the harder one of the catches, but it was a ball that was definitely well placed by Caleb, and I'm sure he's happy about that because the connection is just getting stronger, and I'm excited to see how many red zone targets he gets this upcoming week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of like to wrap up the game, obviously, the game was last Sunday. Well, we won't kind of get into it too much besides like the stats and everything, but pretty much my highlight of the game and, kind of bringing up the question that was brought up about DeAndre Swift was that 36-yard run that DeAndre Swift had to get into the end zone for a touchdown. He threaded the needle on a block, which that's what DeAndre Swift does. I'm not saying he's like a Saquon Barkley type of player, but he's that running back that knows how to kind of like maneuver between the blocks a little bit. Like we call it, he's Swifty. He's DeAndre Swift. So that was an amazing run. I was cheering. I was so happy watching him. That's what DeAndre Swift needed, was a big run like that for a touchdown. What do you think, Dan?
It was a big play. I think the Bears just finally needed a big play. I think a lot of the scoring drives that we usually had ended with like a 5-yard rush or a 1-yard rush or like a 5-yard catch or reception. So it was nice to see like a long play. It was nice to see that there's a lot of energy here from the run game. And like you said, like Swift, he was jumping bodies, he was juking everybody, and he was quicker than everyone on the defensive end. So it was really exciting to see that. It was really electric. And I will say, I think DeAndre plays well. I think him continuing to play well will help Shane build a little bit better for this offense, right? So I think that's just the biggest weakness right now is still the run game. And I think as soon as that becomes a stretch where DeAndre Swift has a stretch of 4 good games, I think that's going to say a lot for the offense when, we start scoring more, we start passing more, and just being a little more productive.
Yeah, I agree, man. So kind of wrap up that game, it is a final drive for the Rams. It was the score is 24-18, 6-point game, and the Rams had the ball for a final drive. They had 1:04 left, and this is, kind of, bear down or lose the game at this point for the defense. And, defense has been stellar for the first 5 weeks. And the first play of that drive, which was like basically the final play for the Rams, Stafford looked to throw to Demarcus Robinson on the left side of the field, and Jaquan Brisker read that so well. Interception. That's all she wrote. That was the game for the Bears. Final score 24-18. So I do see we have another question here, which is I think this is a great question.
Okay. Yeah.
Basically, have my expectations for Caleb Williams changed since the start of the season? This is a great question. I think my expectations have changed a little bit. I projected the Bears to have 12 wins. I'm a greedy Bears fan. I expecting the Bears to have 12 wins. Obviously, we did have a few losses that could have potentially became wins. The one was against the Texans where we kept it a 1-score game. The offense just did not click at all whatsoever. But my expectations for Caleb Williams have kind of gone, I'd say, like right around the same. The reason why I'm saying that is because he is slowly progressing. And I'm not going to compare him to Jaden Daniels right now just because the Washington offense looks a little bit better with especially the offensive line and the blocking. But I do think Caleb Williams is progressing. And this is what we're looking for as Bears fans. Getting thrown in as a rookie, being, a starting quarterback, it's a hard task. Look at what the Packers have done, the last few years, not even a few years, last 15 years, having a quarterback sit on the bench for a year or two, watch the system, watch how the other quarterbacks play, and then throw them in, Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, now to Jordan Love. The Bears have not obviously had that, the luxury of that. We've always had the quarterbacks kind of thrown under the fire, especially with Trubisky. Obviously Fields got to sit for a little bit, and then, he was the backup and stuff like that. But I do think my expectations for Caleb have, pretty much stayed the same. It's hard being a rookie and getting thrown into it. What I think Jaden Daniels is doing right now is awesome. I think he is becoming, a great, quarterback. And I do think Caleb is progressing. He's finally getting, touchdown passes. And we'll talk about the stats in a few minutes, but he had 0 interceptions during the game. Mm-hmm. So what do you think, Dan? What has your expectations been?
Yeah, my expectation for Caleb, it's a very tricky situation being week 4. So I will say my expectations have changed, and unfortunately, maybe they're a little bit lower than they were beforehand. So coming into the season, everyone's excited for number 1 pick, MVP like chance, and everyone's excited for him being the star and having the opportunity to like just lead the league in a category. That no longer, that's just not realistic in my eyes anymore. Mm-hmm. So I went from being very excited to have an MVP caliber, QB, and just, having the opportunity for that, and not saying that he had the talent or the skill set week one already, but
Mhm.
my ceiling for him has definitely become a little bit lower than I
Sure.
first imagined when I first saw him in a Bears uniform. Simply because I do think, there's some sort of issue when it comes to Bears quarterbacks and in the way they function in the system, and no matter what, there's always going to be a change of coach, change of like offensive lineman, and just change of category always. So my expectations for him are a little bit lower. But here's what I'll say: is that at the end of the day, as a Bears fan, you could be sitting here looking for the next great quarterback, the next number one quarterback in the league, or for Bears, right? We should be looking for the best Bears quarterback. I think is simply what makes the most sense for us. We could talk about Jaden Daniels as much as we want, Bo Nix. Like, some of them are having good plays. They're also having some bad plays. Coaching is still a big part of it, right? I still think both those QBs are getting well coached, and Caleb is just underneath that. I think his coaching is just not what it's supposed to be. I think I hear a lot about, would we rather have Jaden Daniels or Caleb? I still would rather have Caleb, but I'd rather have Cliff Kingsbury than I would have Shane Waldron.
Yeah.
And that's 5 games into the season. I think Caleb warms up to a little bit more of a college offense than he does to immediately the NFL offense. But yeah, my expectations have only changed from his ceiling. I think Caleb will still have the opportunity to be the best quarterback in Bears history, which says a lot because at the end of the day, the Bears have lasted this long without someone like that. And so could you imagine just a good, reliable quarterback with a good, reliable defense? At the end of the day, that's what wins football games. You can have it as explosive as a quarterback as you want, but if you could be reliable on both sides of the ball, then that's all I'm hoping for. So at the end of the day, yeah, my expectations for him have slightly changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, kind of going into this, me and a lot of people are like, Super Bowl for the Bears, but brand new quarterback, brand new coordinator and stuff like that, brand new pieces, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift as well. It's hard to say, Super Bowl, especially with all these new key pieces there. But yeah, like you said, Dan, the expectations have lowered a little bit. I know for you, mine have kind of been right around the same. I do think that we're going to see like one of the greatest, Bears quarterbacks to come out. But
I think
we're
so.
seeing progression through Caleb. We're seeing him get the passing yards. We're finally seeing him take less sacks, less interceptions. We'll get into the stats, with the previous game in a few minutes. But obviously, the yards weren't pretty with the Rams. He didn't have but what happened during that game was a lot of rushing, which is what the Bears need. It doesn't need to be 503 yards like Kirk Cousins last night. That was a crazy performance, man. But look what happened. There was no rushing during that game for the Falcons. But yeah, appreciate the question, Brant. Thanks, man. Yeah, so kind of just like, let's quickly get into the stats for, the Rams, Bears Rams game. Caleb did throw 17 for 23, so he 6 incompletions, which is good. Really good for Caleb. 157 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, and he's taking less sacks, which is awesome. Only 3 sacks allowed. Dan, you want to kind of get into the rushing?
Yeah. So that seemed like a pretty typical game for Caleb. I think in a close game, it really heavily relied on the rushing. So I do wish he threw the ball a little bit more. But at the end of the day, the stats are perfect. He was very reliable. So for DeAndre Swift, again, the best Bears rushing game we've seen all season, in almost more than a month. 93 yards rushing and 72 receiving yards. He was the leading receiver for the Bears, and he had 1 rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
And yeah, he just was explosive. He was trustworthy, and you can tell. I mean, at least 7 of those completions were to DeAndre Swift right after he got off that first level of defense. So it's, again, I think he's becoming Caleb's safety net. And my expectation would be maybe he doesn't go lead every week in rushing or have a rushing touchdown, but his receptions, I think, will always be there. He's a pass-catching running back, and I think that's very important for Caleb. So that's extremely awesome. I don't know how many times Caleb rushed this game. I think he rushed 3 times for like 6 yards or something like that, but that's the only other rushing stat I could think of. But yeah, and then we go on to some of the receivers here. So I was expecting Cole Kmet to have a larger game. He had 3 receptions for 34 yards. I thought the connection that Cole and Caleb has was kind of more serious than some of the other receivers on the team. I think him and DJ are still going to take a couple weeks. I felt like him and Cole were on the same connection, but he did have one of the best catches of the game, right down the middle. I'm sure if you watched the game, you'd understand which catch that was. I think that was, again, the most impressive catch in the top 5 that we've seen from Caleb so far this season, and a really incredible one of the incredible throws and the catch from Cole. That was important to me. It was important for me to see that because that's that connection that they're building. They're getting these routes done, and that's an easy completion. That's an easy 15 yards to get at least once a game. So, and even Caleb said himself that a lot of those throws that he's missing when it comes to DJ Moore in the end zone, stuff like that. He already told himself, he's like, we're gonna be running those plays again someday. He's like, someday those plays will be back on my armband, and I'm gonna have to run that play again. And he says, I promise you that I won't be missing those more often. Like those are the passes that I'm going to try to complete as much as possible. So yeah, on Cole Kmet's part, I think 3 receptions is a little bit low, but I would be excited to see what he does this week.
At least it's 34 yards. That's all I got to say. At least it's not 3 receptions for 9 yards where they're 3-yard gains or whatever. But, as long as it's a first down gain or whatever, that's better in my eyes. But yeah, Cole Kmet, I was expecting a little bit of a larger game for him, but 34 yards, 3 receptions. At least he's getting involved a little bit. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, kind of getting on to the other receivers just real quick. DJ Moore did have 3 receptions for 22 yards. He did have, that beautiful touchdown at the end, back of the end zone, which was an awesome throw by Caleb. And then Keenan Allen did make his return after, injuring his heel in week 1. He had 3 receptions for 19 yards. I expect him to be more involved next week. I know he kind of came back to practice that Wednesday, so he didn't really get that many reps, but I do expect him to be more involved this week against Carolina on Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's play calling. I think at the end of the day, Keenan is a guy that can catch 10 balls a game, whether they're 5 yards downfield or 50 yards downfield. Like I think he's definitely someone that can get more comfortable in this offense, even if he doesn't understand the playbook all that well from Shane Waldron. He deserves the ball the most, I think, out of most of these receivers because he's the safety blanket that I originally wanted for Caleb. He's someone that, again, can help Caleb get those just 100 yards easily from one person. So
yeah,
definitely wanted that to be a higher number for him. But then going out to the defense, I mean, we had one of the most premier games ever from a safety, I'd say. I think he got a few calls, right? He got a few flags, but I think that's the energy that you want from the Bears defense. I wouldn't take that flag away. I think if you want to make a hit out of bounds, you make that hit, and I'm happy it was Jaquan. Like Jaquan Brisker, leading tackler of the game, 12 total tackles, 8 solo tackles, 1 sack, which I love to see, 2 tackles for loss, and then the game-winning interception at the end, which he almost had 2 interceptions, 1 in the end zone, some way midway through the third quarter, I believe. But I think that was at the second quarter. But his foot was out of bounds when he came back in to make contact with the ball. So that was an issue. He would have had 2 interceptions at that point, but they did reverse that call. But still, very aggressive game from Jaquan, and I'm really happy to see that. I think that's one of the best defensive games we've seen all year from one of the players on defense.
Yeah. Jaquan had an amazing game, man. That interception at the end that really sealed the deal for us. Actually, getting that sack as well. The lean tackler below him was TJ Edwards. He's been, an amazing pickup for the Bears since we got him from the Eagles, which has been an amazing addition. This defense, they're working together really good, man. They really are. They're communicating well with each other. Tremaine Edmonds is now the caller on the defense since Roquan Smith left. He is the guy, kind of calling the shots and communicating with everybody. When he first came in, he wasn't doing too, it took him a little bit. It's a brand new defense to kind of learn, but the pieces are connected on the defense, which is awesome for us. Tyreek Stevenson had a better game. He did give up a few big passes, but he's having a better game. I think he did have a really good tackle as well, if I recall correctly. He had something, I completely forgot what the play was, but he did have a good tackle during the game. So yeah, and then kind of looking on his special teams real quick, just to wrap it up. Cairo Santos did go 1 for 1 on field goals. It was a 40-yard field goal attempt. Good. It was good from him. I think last week he did end up missing one, so good that he didn't, keep the trend going. And now a big name that I know my girlfriend's cousin went to Iowa. He loves him a lot. He's going to probably snag a jersey pretty soon. Torrey Taylor, huge 4th-round pickup by the Bears. He had 5 punts for 277 total punt yards, 3 punts inside of the 20, and his longest punt, which is absolutely ridiculous, being 66 yards. Yeah. So
that's insane. That's insane.
This is
like, guys, we watched this game against the Rams last year, right? Last year in Los Angeles when their punter was just killing the Bears every single play, right? He won the player of the week that week as well. This is insane turn of events. Like, I just love being on the side of the ball, having a great special teams. And I think it's all coaching too. I think coaching is doing really well, putting them in these positions of like where and what and like why. Like especially like the way Austin Booker is playing on special teams. Like Tory Taylor is MVP of this team so far.
Yeah.
I think if there's anybody you can put as like the trustworthy punter in the NFL right now, like I would be picking Tory Taylor.
He's been amazing, man. And because of his efforts against the Rams, he did end up winning Week 4 Special Teams Player of the Week for the NFC, which is well-deserved for Tory Taylor. This is why you spend a 4th-round pick on the guy. A lot of people probably judge the Bears with the 4th-round pick, being like, why would why picking up a punter? It's the lowest drafted punter since 2012 in the NFL. But I did see an article on Twitter saying that this might become a new trend, that maybe minimum in the 4th round, punters and kickers start getting drafted because they're key assets. Because some of these punts, it's either, punt into the end zone, you start at the 25, or you can pin them inside the 20 and potentially, have them start at the 5-yard line, which is, not a lot of room to work with. But Tory Taylor did amazing against the Rams. Love to see it. Like you said, man, I completely forgot about that game last year with the punter for the Rams. I remember me and you were super upset about that game. There was no offense going with the Bears.
Johnny Hecker, I think it was.
Johnny Hecker. So,
I forgot his name. But yeah, that was a ridiculous game because we only scored 3 points that game. Yeah.
When you see the player of the game being the other team's punter because they are holding us back and forcing us to punt, gets us a little bit riled up. But it's great to see the Bears, finally taking that reward for that. But so kind of just to wrap this up, I want to talk about, quickly positives and negatives with this game with the Bears. We talked about already positives for the Bears. One of the positives for me is that the Bears run game. The Bears run game was absolutely awesome. DeAndre Swift, obviously leading rusher, 93 yards and a touchdown. His touchdown was very swift, not being, jokes aside, but 16 total carries, averaging 5.8 yards per carry. We're progressing, right, Dan? Bless you. Hey, I knew that. Always one time you got
another one.
Bless you.
But
yeah. Now, no,
it's finally good to see that happening. And my last point about Tory Taylor, I think Poles knows what he's doing, and I think it takes a little bit of a slow start in the eyes of DeAndre Swift as well. Like, it wasn't until week 4 we finally saw a moment, like their moment to shine, and like I was really waiting for Tory Taylor to get his moment to shine as well. DeAndre Swift, man, it looks like it's paying off, right? Because if he can do this a couple times in the season, I think he's gonna, remain that fullback, that starting position there. But yeah, I mean, 5.8 yards per carry. That's double what he averaged the first 4 games, the first 3 games. So that was exciting to see. And in Roschon too. Roschon's got a little bit in the mix. I think he's become a popular waiver wire player in the last 2 weeks. So in those looking for fantasy fillers, he only had 7 carries for 26 yards, but he did have 3 first downs. Like most of the carries that he had did go for first downs, which is tremendous, especially for this offense. If you can lean on the ground game to kind of get you those easy yardage and then get you a new set of downs, like that's impressive, and I was really happy about that. But yeah, that's the stat I was looking for. Caleb rushing 5 times for 12 yards. That's the stat I was looking for. Yep, pretty good from Caleb.
Yeah. And what's great, man, is that the Bears offense is finally starting to realize what the opposing team's weaknesses are. And before this game, the Rams were ranked 31st in the league in rushing defense. And then, after this game, they're ranked 32nd. They're the worst team in rushing defense now after that Bears performance. So it's great that finally, Shane Waldron is learning, take advantage of the weaknesses. Against the Texans, man, we were rushing the ball way too much. And clearly the Texans have a great rush defense. But Shane Waldron could not figure that out. And he kept on rushing to the left side. Negative yards for DeAndre Swift, negative yards for and finally got the pass game going. It worked a little bit during that game, but it's all about kind of, dissecting the opposing teams, weaknesses, whether they have a bad passing defense, yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, I mean, some other things, some other takeaways for positive for the Bears. We had Caleb, I think, definitely had one of the better games. When it came to QBR, I think he definitely had one of the better games. He didn't see any interceptions, no fumbles. He did get sacked less this game than the previous 2 games, so that was exciting to see as well. I think everyone's just coming a little bit together. I think the passing was still a bit on edge. I think the fact that the running game was doing fine, he didn't have as many deep shots. But you still look at his pass chart, and his pass chart looked tremendous. Like he's hitting every level of the defense, and he's hitting every 10-yard passes, 5-yard passes, 20-yard passes. He's really killing it there. So I was really excited about that, and I think the defense, especially after the last game, putting some blame on the cornerbacks, right? Like I think Jalen Johnson played a little bit slow when he played the Colts, so it was nice to see him get back to that stardom, like where it was difficult to pass in his direction, and I think it would have been a little bit different with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua in the game, but you still got to be thankful because their wide receivers still garnered a lot of catches, and Stafford didn't have a tremendous game, but he still got the ball where it needed to go, and the receiver still got those 10 yards after the catch. So it was nice to see them, but the defense did play a lot better this week. I was really excited about that. And then Todd, what about this emergence from Gervon Dexter?
He's been a great man. He's been a stud for the Bears. Yeah. Kind of talking about I think he's at 3 sacks right now, man. 3 sacks, just tackles for losses for the Bears. He's been doing very well. Gervon Dexter Sr. is improving every game, which is like we talked about. That's all you can ask for with the Bears. Any player with the Bears, improving every game. Learning the offense a little bit more, and the defense. Obviously, with Gervon Dexter Sr. and he's been doing awesome, man. And then lastly, I just think that obviously we talked about he did win NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Torrey Taylor's been excellent. He's always going to be a positive for the Bears. He's been doing great. So
yeah, definitely the young guys. Young guys are stepping in for the Bears right now, and Caleb playing his part.
Yeah, and
now we get to the
fun part.
Yeah, the disruptive parts, the negatives, which I can't say there's many, but there definitely is a few spots that we can highlight each week. I think they're similar. I think the O-line still needs a little bit of help when it comes to protecting Caleb, and I mean, play calling I think is still a big thing. And I know you had one written down here, which I think is number one. So I want you to go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, I think this is like looking at I'm looking at the positives and negatives with the game. The Bears had a lot of positives. Obviously, run game was a positive. We obviously just went through the list, but negatives, this is the one thing that I'm seeing with the negative is just like the inconsistency from like the different receivers being used. I know Keenan Allen just came back off that injury, but he, didn't have a huge game. Rome Odunze was nowhere to be found this game. He had 1 catch. I believe it was like 10 yards, 1 catch. I didn't even put him in the stats just because he didn't really do anything. But, Rome Odunze, DJ Morley at 33 yards. But this was kind of the rush game for the Bears. DeAndre Swift had 77 receiving yards, it was like 77 or 90. I forgot, flip flop with the rushing. But just this kind of my only negative right now is just inconsistent, usage with the receivers. It could be a worse negative. Obviously it could be giving up 40 points a game or something like that. But I just think right now it's just a little bit inconsistent.
True. No, I totally agree. I think there has to be a little bit more. I think Caleb has the arm. Caleb has the talent to get the ball out there. The game before, he threw 50 passes. I'm confused on why, especially players like DJ aren't getting as many looks as they can. I understand Swift took 7 catches, right, which is a pretty exciting thing. But I wish along with those 7 catches from Swift, we saw at least 7 catches with Caleb or Keenan. Those are guys that can turn plays around, right? They can turn a negative play into a 50-yard gain. So you really got to trust those players, and I think it's feeling more comfortable with those opportunities, when they strike. So that's definitely a negative I would agree with. I think that the inconsistencies with the receivers is just, it doesn't spell trouble yet, but it does have me worrying just a tad bit, seeing that how talented this offense is in the wide receiver room. They're definitely underappreciated, but I think they can get a little bit more play style going.
Yeah, I agree, man. Yeah, so great game for the Bears, getting that win against the Rams. We were really, super excited that the Bears could actually pull away with the win, especially with no Puka, no Cooper Kupp in the mix. Amazing win for the Bears. Great job by them. Now we're 2-2 on the season. So, being at even 500 on the season, which is awesome. Now let's preview the next week, man. Let's go into week 5. Week 5 is going to be a big week for the Bears because, obviously kind of discussed it a little bit earlier. We're taking on the Carolina Panthers. Clearly the team last year that we did that huge trade with, they got Bryce Young, who is not going to be their quarterback on Sunday because a few weeks ago, they decided to change it up a bit after they gave up all those assets to get Bryce Young with the number 1 pick. Decided to change it up with the backup, in the veteran Andy Dalton.
Former Bear.
Yeah,
right?
former Bear.
From 2 seasons ago, not even that long ago, he was wearing a Bears uniform. But surprisingly, I think that was his 3rd team after the Bears. So Yeah, that should be an interesting game. I will say that the Panthers' offense is looking good. They're looking smooth.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of their cornerstones when it comes to the receiver room and the running backs are heavily involved. They're getting those opportunities and they're catching those passes. So it's going to be very exciting to see the defense. I think the defense is going to have a lot to handle here, and I think they're going to provide well. But yeah, I mean, Andy Dalton revenge game. I really don't want to say those words because he only played here for 4 games, but it should be an interesting one. And I think playing at home is going to be important.
Yeah, it's his return to the Bears since he was the quarterback in 2021. He did take over, I believe it was in week 13, week 14 when Justin Fields did hurt his shoulder. Came in for 4 games. He performed pretty well, for being the backup. But we're 3.5-point favorites on Sunday at home at Soldier Field against the Panthers. We are currently 2-2. The Panthers are currently 1-3. They did get that win 2 weeks ago, which kind of, gave them a little bit of a spark. So let's not count them out being 1-3. Obviously we got to always, look to, gain the win, especially if a team's 0-4. Got it.
Especially at home too. I can't imagine losing to Carolina at home. Like
Bears are currently 2-0 at home, man.
Yeah,
for the
so
season,
that would
awesome.
be important. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So kind of getting into it. I won't go over all these players, with the injuries, kind of getting into it, but currently the players out for the Panthers on Sunday is Jossie Jewell, Shaq Thompson. He's not on the IR, and then Andrew Rhyme. And then there's a few other people that are questionable. There's actually, if this list was crazy when I did the notes a few days ago for the injury report. This list was like 12 to 15 people. I remember somebody tweeting about it. It switched up a little bit. There's a lot of people questionable now, but the big key piece that is, that we didn't know if he'd be playing or not on Sunday is Deontay Johnson, former Steelers wide receiver that got traded to Carolina. He is expected to play after he suffered an ankle injury in the last game. So that's a piece for Andy Dalton to throw to. There's another piece that's on IR right now for the Panthers, which is Adam Thielen. He did end up getting hurt. I think it's like a chest injury. I forgot what it was, but he's on IR right now. But yeah, Deontay Johnson's going to be in. So at least Andy Dalton is going to have a target. Jalen Johnson will be covering him during the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I do think Deontay Johnson is the most disruptive wide receiver on that roster. Mm-hmm. I think he's someone that can definitely produce big numbers. But yeah, excited to see Jalen Johnson cover him because I think he's talented, but he's not the most talented. I think he'd be a wide receiver too on most other rosters, but he definitely has made a connection with Andy Dalton. So I'm excited to see how that is going to play out. I don't think the Carolina offense is still to be feared. I don't think they have the type of offense that every other team is going to be like, oh, look, they're clicking, now they're creating something. I still think there's a lot of question marks there, and I think the Bears defense has evolved enough through 4 games to kind of understand how to put pressure on this team, and I think this could be one of the better defensive games. I know we've had some amazing defensive games this year, but I think when it comes to padding the stats, I think when it comes to sacks and interceptions, this could be a really important game. But those aren't the only players out, right? The Bears have a roster of 52 players that isn't technically all 52 healthy. So we're going to go over some of those players. The main player that worried me the most was Tevin Jenkins. He's him and DeAndre Carter are officially questionable. I think those are 2 very big pieces to the team, special teams and offensive line. Tevin, I think with him being out, it wasn't the biggest loss. I mean, he did miss multiple plays in the last few games. So having the backup in there didn't change absolutely all that much. I think Tevin is just someone that it can be trusted, not calling him a veteran, but he's definitely played more snaps than most of the other players on this offensive line, right? And then DeAndre Carter, I think, is going to be a big miss because he's been definitely leading the team when it comes to special team punt returns and kick returns. I don't know who's going to step in front if he doesn't play this game, but I believe he was also questionable last week. If I'm maybe I'm getting confused.
I completely forgot if he was questionable last week or not. But yeah, it's a big piece out, man. Special teams with him as well. I know he didn't do anything with receiving just because Keenan Allen was back during the game, and then Rome Odunze is obviously on the active roster now. Keenan Allen, so he's not really been with the receiver core, but yeah, he's going to be missed on special teams for sure.
Definitely, and so then we have 2 players that are ruled out. Zach Pickens, again, we've yet to see his 2024 debut. And then Terrell Smith hip was also ruled out. I think that's another key miss just because he has provided for a very long time, and his snap count has been tremendous in the games that he has played. So it will be tough to be there without him because he's aggressive, right? He gets to the quarterback and he gets those interferences on the passes, and he's definitely an aggressive player. So not having him this game hurts, but I think they'll be fine. They'll be able to find talent elsewhere on this defense as usual.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I was just kind of searching up right now. We're kind of getting into the next thing where we're talking about week 5 adjustments for the Bears. We're talking about what the Bears could do to get in the heads of Carolina and get some points on them and stuff. I just looked it up. The Bears are currently, or I'm sorry, not the Bears. The Panthers are currently the 27th ranked team in rush defense. So what does that mean for Shane Waldron? Kind of like what we did last week against the Rams. I think we have to attack that, man. I'm not sure what the passing is. I'm going to look that up actually right now just to kind of see for what they're kind of, obviously ranked. Let's see. I got it here. The Panthers are currently, I got it. Can't find Carolina, the name anywhere. But Carolina is currently ranked 24th in passing. Okay, so they're kind of, less than middle of the road as well. I think we can kind of attack them either or. We're going to attack them in the rush, attack them in the pass. That's what's good. If a team is like number, 1 through 10 in passing and rushing, it's a bit hard to attack them there because they're clearly solid. But clearly, since Carolina is 27th in rushing and about 24th in passing defense, I think we're going to attack them on both ends of the ball. So I think that's week 5 adjustments. We can mix match, not like last week with the Rams where they have a decent passing and we attack the rush. We can kind of mix it up a bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is a game that, you got to let everybody cook. I think everyone knows in Chicago, even the players, right? They know that they have to beat this Carolina team. Losing to this team would definitely be harsh when it comes to the reviews on social media and everything like that, and it kills progression. So this is a game. I don't want to say it's the most must-win game out of the first 5 weeks, but in my opinion, I think this is a game that should be a win. Like, I can't think of it any other way. And so at that point, I want the offense to click. I want Caleb to, really progress and get his reads down and complete more passes than he did in this last game. And then DeAndre Swift just have another good game. DeAndre Swift keep leading the rushing attack, and Roschon is going to be in there as well. So that two-headed duo, I think, can really produce some heat, this coming Sunday.
Yeah. That's why we're paying him the big bucks, man. DeAndre Swift needs to, get going like he did last week. And that's great that we saw DeAndre Swift finally, connect on the offense. So hopefully he can pick it up in week 5 against the Panthers. We're going to look forward to it. I'm really excited to watch the game. And yeah, it's going to be a fun game to watch, especially, at Soldier Field at noon. Those are always the best. Noon Soldier Field games. It's just like, it's like a holiday, man, every Sunday.
Exactly.
So yeah, this is the segment I know you came up with. I'm so happy you came up with this idea. You're always clever with different things. But my favorite part of the segment, bear down or bear frown. So last week we had 4 things that we came up with. Only one of them did hit, which was the Bears get 3 sacks. We both said bear down to that, and the Bears did get 3 sacks on Matthew Stafford. A few of the other ones were kind of close. One of them was like, Roma Dunes. Well, one was like Roma Dunze, like over 100 yards, which was hard to see, or like over 8 receptions or something. But let's kind of get right into it. So the first bear down or bear frown, Dan. So DeAndre Swift did have a great game last week with the receptions. He did lead the Bears in receiving yards, but in week 5 against the Carolina Panthers, bear down or bear frown, do you think DeAndre Swift is going to have 5 receptions?
I think bear frown for this. I think he's still going to I think he could exactly get 5 receptions. I think they're going to focus on him being more of a rusher this game. I think Caleb, if Caleb's going to get those easy read passes, I think they're going to say, hey, give him to DJ or give him to Keenan. It's kind of the idea, especially with Rome only getting 1 catch last week. I think that has to change because you see players like Malik Neighbors, right? All these other first-round receivers, they're getting those 11 targets, right, and 100 yards. So I think it's definitely going to be more of a game where they're telling Caleb, like, you can definitely dish it to Swift, but I think Swift is going to focus a lot more on rushing this game.
Yeah, I'm going to go bear frown on this one as well. I think DeAndre Swift is capable of getting 5 receptions. I do think they're going to mix it up in the passing and the rush game. I see him getting probably about 3 or 4 receptions this game. He's going to have a few, I think he's going to have a 20-yard reception or get a nice rush out of that. But I do see, just right around 3 or 4. That's what I got for him. So let's go on to the next one, man. How about bear down or bear frown? This is a big one because we do, seeing Carolina and being a weakened team, and only 1 win, and they, had a rough year last year. Bear down or bear frown that the Bears score over 30 points in this game. I'll start this one off, man. I'm going to go bear frown on this one. I would love to see them score 30 points. They just haven't been able to do that yet. I do see them getting a few touchdowns in this game. I think I see Caleb potentially getting 2 touchdowns. I do see like maybe a rushing touchdown or 2 that gets us right around 24 points or 28 points or whatever, but it's not over 30.
Mm-hmm.
I do see them potentially getting somewhere in the 20s, mid 20s. I don't think the Bears will get about 30 points, but it'd be awesome to see. What about you, man?
I'm going to go bear down. I'm going to go bear down on this. I think for the first
Love
time
it.
this season, the Bears go over 30. I
Love
think we
it.
haven't reached over 24 yet this season. I think we get over 30 points here. I think the Bears offense is going to have the best efficiency day when it comes to rushing and passing. I don't think Caleb hits 360 yards like he did in week 3, but I do think he's going to have one of the better games. Again, his QBR is constantly rising. I think we see Caleb's best game yet. No interceptions, maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns, and then a lot from the rushing game as well. I think 30 points here is good. I think the reason I think 30 points is because I have a feeling that Carolina will not be scoring as highly as we anticipate them to with the Bears defense, with the way they're playing. So I think the offense gets a click in. I think we hit over 30.
I like it, man. I'd hope we get over 30. Let's get 50, man.
Yeah, let's get 50. Yeah.
You want to take the next one, man?
Sure. Okay, so we got 2 more left here. The number 3 option is Caleb over 22 completions. Bear down or bear frown? How do we feel?
I'm going bear down on this one, man. Bear down. I see him gain, over 25 completions this game. I think he goes like 25 for 29 or 20. If I'm gaining a few more incompletions, I think he gets like 27 for 35 or something like that. I think he's going to have a great passing game. I think he's going to have 25 catches. I think this is going to be the game where I think Carolina thinks we're going to be rushing the ball a lot, but we might pass the ball more. And I know I kind of said earlier in the podcast that we're going to be rushing the ball more, but I just never know with Shane Waldron's offense. Obviously, it's his first time being an offensive coordinator for the Bears. But I do see he did, coach Geno Smith, and Geno Smith was a great passer when he was with them. I do see him getting over 22 completions. I see right around 25 to around 28. What about you, man?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I think going along with the idea of Bears scoring over 30, I think he does get those 25 completions. I think it's seeing him only get 17 completions for 150 yards. I think Poles is kind of putting higher expectations on this game, not because it's Carolina, but because week 5, like they want Caleb to start torching it. And I think this is a game of a very simple opportunity for him to torch a mediocre defense at best. So I think it's that opportunity's there. 25 completions easy.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the last one, man. Yeah, so this is a big one too. Obviously talking about the offensive line, and they've been doing pretty well. The kind of within the weeks they've been kind of progressing or not. Bear down or bear frown. Do you think this offensive line is going to allow less than 3 sacks on Caleb's? What do you think, man?
I'm going to go. I'd love to go right in the middle because I think 3 is a good number, seeing that he got sacked 3 times last week. But I'm going to go bear down. I'm going to go bear down on this. I think the offensive line holds up this game, and I think Caleb releases the ball a lot quicker when it comes to like him passing to his running backs or him just passing the ball in general. I think there's not many big names when it comes to the Carolina defensive line, and I think this offensive line definitely has a good matchup ahead of them. So yeah, I'd like to say bear down. I don't think Caleb. I think I'm going to say this is crazy, but I think he gets sacked once, just one time.
That's a good. I'm going to go bear frown on this one. The reason why you said it is because we have it listed at less than 3. I think he's going to get sacked 3 times. I think it's going to be right at that number. I would love for him to only get sacked once. I just think there's a few plays where, sometimes the wide receiver doesn't block too well, or, the outside tackle doesn't block too well. And sometimes these, defensive players just slip right in and get an easy sack. We saw that last week on a few plays. But I do think it's going to be right around 3. Love to see it at 1, but yeah, that's what I got it, man.
Yeah, totally. And so those are our 4 for this week when it comes to bear down, bear frown. We'll definitely let you guys know next week what hits and what doesn't. And yeah, we'll keep changing them up. I think this week we went a little bit more raw, right? We went a little bit more the expectations are that we're going to have a good game. So I'm just hoping that most of these hit, and me going 4 for 4 would be nice. I think out of the 8 that we've done in the last 3 weeks or last 2 weeks, I think we've only hit 2 of them. So it would be nice to kind of catch up in here. I'd love to go 4 for 4.
Yeah. So yeah, this is, let's get into this because this is, a great topic, because obviously brand new quarterback for the Bears, Caleb Williams. He's now through 4 weeks of play. and obviously going into the 5th week against Carolina. So looking into his stats about 4 weeks in, he has 87 completions with 141 attempts, which is a 61.7% completion percentage. Let's not look at the other rookie quarterback that's on, in the NFC. Well, we won't compare that. He's putting up, stellar numbers right now.
Yeah.
It's crazy what he's doing right now, but his offensive line can actually hold him up like decently well. But he has 787 yards, 5.6 yards per attempt, 3 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions on the year. Big improvement last week and 0 interceptions, and then a 72 average rating. So what do you think about these numbers, man? 4 weeks in for Caleb. Obviously, we wish that probably the completion is maybe right around 70% or a little bit more. But what do you got, man?
He's definitely underperformed from what I originally had with my stats when we guessed, I think, week 2. We said what were his stats going to be heading into week 6. He's definitely excelled in the yards, right? I had him at after week 5, I had him at 800 yards, and I think he's definitely exceeded that, so that's good to see. Pass yards per attempt, I'd like to see a little bit higher. I think the 5 yards have a lot to do with Swift's catching last game.
True.
Him only having to be like 3 yards downfield, so that's nice. I do think it's a little bit better on the passing game here for him. It's a little more comfortable. Completion percentage, again, I think it's just getting comfortable with those receivers. If they're going to only be catching 3 receptions, then it's a different story. But if we can get a couple games where 2 receivers can get, 8 or more targets, then I think that's going to help out his completion percentage a little bit. But 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions isn't beautiful, but I think it's going to take a couple weeks for that to look like a more decent number. I'd love to see that number a little bit higher, just because Justin Fields threw for 17 touchdowns last season. I think it was. It might have been less, but I would love to see a number higher than 17 at the end of the season, and 3 touchdowns through 4 weeks seems a little bit on the similar track. So I'd love to see something higher than that.
Yeah. I agree with you, man. I think that, the completion percentage needs to be up a little bit more. I think because of last week and not throwing as much, that kind of threw it off a little bit. But only 3 touchdowns through 4 weeks. I think we can boost those numbers up this week. I see Caleb gain about 2 touchdowns this week to add 2 more onto it. He gets 5 total touchdowns for 5 weeks, which is a touchdown a game if you think about it. So that is kind of around the pace you're kind of get to. Obviously, we'd like to see those a little bit more, maybe about 6 or 7 through 5 weeks. So you're at least a little bit more than 1 passing touchdown game. But as long as you're getting rushing touchdowns as well, I think that's, it doesn't have to be obviously a Caleb rushing touchdown, but I think, at least as long as the offense is getting a rushing touchdown, that's good. And let's keep those interception numbers. As long as we less than 1 interception a game, it can be right around 1, but it's less than 1, last game not getting any, that's a great sign. So I think Caleb is obviously underperformed a little bit. Obviously, he's not at what Jaden Daniels is at right now at like 86% completion, which is an NFL record, which is absolutely bonkers. But he is improving, which is awesome. Every week he's improving, taking less sacks, less interceptions, reading the defense more, we've been seeing with Caleb, and he's taking over this offense a little bit more, playing calls at the line, reading the defense, which this offense, offensive coordinator and our head coach, Eberflus, recognizes that he knows the game of ball, and if he wants to make a call, change of the play at the line of scrimmage, he'll do it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. So to basically wrap up real quick, let's just kind of dive real quick into the last 3 games, or I'm sorry, not the last 3 games, but the next 3 games coming up for the Bears. We just previewed it, for the last, 20 minutes. Bears next Sunday, we got Panthers at home, Andy Dalton's comeback to Soldier Field. And what are the next 2 games, Dan?
The game after that, we have the exciting opportunity to go play in London, which I didn't know this. I don't know if you knew this too, Tyler. The Jags have played like 3 times more games in London than any other team, strictly because of their close relationship through the owner and how much he loves the city of London.
I didn't even know. Okay.
I had no idea either, but it just so happened that I looked at this game and I'm like, for some reason, I always thought the Jags were playing in London, like no matter what, every season. And it just so happens that they do. They do play every single season a game in London. So we do play the Jags there. I'm pretty excited about that game because I think it's going to be a good opportunity for Caleb to gain some, worldwide respect. I think he could play a really good game in London. Then people in the United States are going to understand, okay, this guy has no fear of where he plays at. I think he's going to be a stud in London. And then I think we have what I would say is the most important game so far coming up this season. If it's not against the Panthers, then it's definitely going to be against the Commanders in Washington, number 1 pick versus number 2 pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. Obviously, a lot of the stats will change in the next 3 games, so we'll see kind of where they compare to each other. But I think before that game, Tyler and I are going to have a really deep dive into what predictions would look like and what we actually think these 2 quarterbacks are going to play like that game. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. I think it's been a while since the Bears had a really, a game on the schedule that looks important. So this is going to be one of those games for us.
Yeah, these next 3 weeks, man. I know we say it every time when we come to this. These next 3 weeks are important, but every game is important for the Bears. Getting that win against the Rams was key. That was awesome to bring us to 2-2. The Panthers next Sunday is going to be a huge game, obviously with that trade and whatever. The Jags in London, I was talking to a few people and I was like, basically they were saying, oh yeah, the Jags are home that game. I don't think it's going to be a Jags home game. It's going to feel like, why? Because Bears fans know how to travel, man. They know how to travel around the world, whether it's, remember week 2 in Houston? I read tweets, people were saying that it felt like a 45, which is huge, like a big percentage, 45% Bears fans in that game. So that's almost half that stadium is Bears fans, which Bears fans know how to travel and they know how to support our team. I think we can do that in London as well. I wish I was going to the game. I actually wanted to go. I ended up, screwing up my ankle and couldn't do that, couldn't figure out what to do. And I didn't know when I would, get back to it. But there's always going to be in the next few years. I think the last time they performed or were there was like 2018. So maybe about 4 years down the road, or hopefully next year or whatever, if they get invited back, I'll try to travel to London and be a once in a lifetime experience. But like you said, man, the Commanders in 2 weeks, that's going to be a huge game. Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams facing off in Washington. It's going to be a great game. That could be a game for Caleb, to silence the haters. Did the Bears screw up by not taking Jaden Daniels number 1? That's like the number 1 question we're seeing on Twitter right now, man, just because of how good Jaden's been in Washington. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm not sure what the time is. I did not write the time down for that game. I'm not sure if it's noon or 3:25 or whatever, but it's going to be a big game for the Bears. And it's going to be, Washington's been stellar so far this year. I thought Washington was going to be great. They started improving, even with the last quarterback they had, Sam Howell, which isn't even a starting quarterback anymore, but it's going to be a good game. So next 3 games for the Bears, I think it's like we should have a quote or crucial, but it literally is crucial for the Bears these next 3 games, especially Jags offense not doing well. Panthers not doing well. Andy Dalton's doing a little bit better. Commanders doing very well. So it could be 3 games that, the Bears can figure that out. So.
Oh, totally. And I wouldn't be surprised if we said 3 wins, right? I would be very, very ecstatic about that. I think there's some realization that these 3 games are very attainable, seeing that the last few games we won by a touchdown or lost by a touchdown. So hopefully things can change starting this week.
Yeah. All right. I think that's pretty much it, man. Kind of covering, Panthers and the Bears. We got a big game on Sunday in Soldier Field at noon. It's going to be I know obviously I'll be tuning in. I'm going to be really excited about that one. But like we say, guys, we always appreciate all the listeners and supporters, for D&T and the 773. Love talking about the Bears. Bulls is coming up soon. We'll definitely get into that. It's going to be a fun season. We lost some key players with the Bulls, but some key players might be coming back. So we'll kind of, discuss that. But we always love talking about the Bears and dissecting what goes down in all the Bears games. And it's fun talking about, Chicago sports. So.
Yeah, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. There's no other city I'd rather be repping, and there's no other teams that I'd rather be talking about. Even though there is a sense of mediocrity in Chicago at the moment, I think there's always some level of stardom happening on these teams, right? Whether it's the Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, blah, blah, blah. There's a couple players on those teams that deserve to be mentioned, and they're going to have good games this season, so it's up to us to talk about it.
Yeah. All right, guys, we appreciate it a lot. Thanks so much. You can always leave a comment with whatever we say if there are any hot takes or anything like that. We love hearing, what you guys have to say about the Bears, anything with the organization or whatever. We'll always, try to, respond to you. Especially, when we're live, we're going to try to get into it. So we appreciate it as always, guys. We'll be back next week, talking about the Bears-Panthers game and, obviously previewing the Bears-Jags game in London. So thanks a lot, guys. We appreciate it. As always, bear down.
Bear down. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.